It's time for Crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, and I to debate. We have to talk about what he's doing and where we're going. We owe it to our country. We owe it to all Americans. Anytime, anywhere, any place.
And listen, the president himself did not mince words, right? He said that he beat Donald Trump twice in 2020. Donald Trump hasn't debated since. The president is happy to debate. He's happy to do it twice. And he thinks that we should do this sooner rather than later so that the American people can see the stark choice that's in front of them in this election. We should do it in June after Donald Trump's criminal trial is likely to conclude and after the president returns from the G7 summit. And then we should have a second debate in September, well ahead of early voting begins. So again, that the American people can hear from both candidates before they go cast their ballots. That's what we should be doing in a 21st century presidential election. And the president's ready to do so. I think the question now becomes, will Donald Trump keep his word? Will he step up to the plate here? We haven't heard from him yet, but we'll be waiting all day.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I gotta tell you guys, the mainstream liberal media is still coping with the fact that Trump is beating Biden, okay? I mean, that is what the latest New York Times Siena poll, which is somewhat of an outlier. But again, this is a liberal media poll, and they showed that Trump was absolutely dominating Biden across the board in swing states like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia. I mean, he is just absolutely killing it right now, right? The Trump train is speeding up. And Joe Biden seems to be on a one-way trip to a landslide loss in the election. But again, that doesn't keep people like Joe Scarborough from denying reality, which is the specialty of the liberal media and Democrats when things don't go their way, by basically trying to accuse the New York Times, which again is a liberal outlet, of some type of conspiracy to drive the news cycle and to make it look like Joe Biden is losing and Trump is winning, even though the polling averages show Trump winning, which probably means that he's doing a lot better than what the polls are saying. Take a look.
What I hear is after these Siena polls come out, every time New York Times poll says, "Oh well, everything that Joe Biden's done since the State of the Union address, all this money that he's put out, all of the campaigning is for naught." No, it's not. No, it's not. There's one poll that's wildly skewed every time. Okay. And it does shape, if it's a New York Times poll versus a Morning Consult poll, and the New York Times then amplifies it 15, 16, 17 times, it warps reality. And everybody responds to that in the media and in the political world.
So all I'd say about this is that I agree with you that the problem to me, unless you want to suggest you think there's a conspiracy at the Times about this, which
their methodology is bizarre.
Well, but you're talking about
Larry Sabato said this.
Right.
Walston said this.
Joe, you're saying something more than that, though. You're saying the New York Times is systematically putting these polls out in a way to try to amplify them to drive the news cycle.
Yes. I am saying that.
And I'm saying I'd like to know. I'm curious. As someone who I understands your level of sophistication about reading the media, why you think that's true. What I'm trying to say is, I agree with you. The best bulwark against any polls, outliers, or anything else for people who are actually consumers of this information is to not let any given news outlet or any given poll shape your perception of the race unduly.
But John, that's not realistic, and I'll tell you why it's not realistic. Because, and I'll say to you, because I know people come up to you after every New York Times Siena poll comes out. It completely changes the political battlefield out there for about a week and a half. It distorts the questions that are asked of the White House. It distorts the questions that are asked of Donald Trump. It distorts all of the opinion. It distorts everything. And that keeps happening every month when this comes out. And then finally, about 2 weeks later, after the residue of the New York Times Siena poll leaves, people go, "Oh, I think Joe Biden's on a winning streak." And then 2 weeks later, it comes out again, and it's garbage. It's an outlier. And yes, the New York Times, when they have all of these experts questioning the methodology, when they're calling like 20% of the people likely voters who have never voted before or didn't vote in the last two primaries, when they're even quoting people who said they're switching their vote from Joe Biden, who have never voted before? I'm sorry. The New York Times has to know what they're doing.
Yeah, so again, the cope is amazing here, okay? Joe Scarborough, who's also one of these fake conservatives like Alyssa Farah Griffin, I wish he'd just come out here and say, I am a Democrat, because I don't understand how you can call yourself a conservative and to openly root for Joe Biden, okay? It's one thing for you to say, hey, I just don't want to vote for Trump, but I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden either. Okay, fine. I guess you can still say you're a conservative, but you cannot claim to be a conservative and still want to vote for Joe Biden and support Joe Biden. It just doesn't make sense. Okay, so I wish this guy would stop gaslighting us, pretending that he's a conservative because he's not. But anyways, despite the cope, right, the polls are the polls. At the end of the day, Trump is up 1.1 on average, according to Real Clear Politics, which, again, for a Republican, basically means that it is very likely that he would win if the election were held today. Okay, it is extremely likely, considering how Republicans don't even need the popular vote in order to win. Also, considering how Biden has a bunch of other people in the race as well, too, taking away votes from him, like RFK, like Cornel West, like Jill Stein. Yeah, to me, I just find it hard to believe that Biden can overcome that. And you know how you know that the polls are legit, right? And that the Biden administration is desperate? Well, they're marching Joe out here to basically challenge Trump to a debate and to say that, hey, I'm ready to debate now. I want to debate anytime, any place. They're actually proposing a couple of time frames, June and September, I believe, before early voting, to do the debate. So the Biden campaign struggled to put out this video of Joe Biden challenging Trump to a debate.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays. Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Yeah, so, again, you saw it twice, right? You know, I feel like they struggled putting that together, right? They really did, okay? They struggled putting that 17-second clip together of Joe Biden challenging Trump to a debate. It really is a damn shame. But this is Biden falling into Trump's trap, right? In the sense that Trump has been baiting Biden into debating. And up until recently, the Biden campaign hasn't really said anything, okay? They've been saying, well, we'll see. We really don't know, because they know that the debate is probably not going to work out well for Joe Biden. But since the polls are so terrible right now, basically doing a debate is something that they have to do in order to prove that Joe Biden has the cognitive abilities to still be president of the United States, right? And that's the only reason that they're doing it, is quite literally because at this point, if the election was held today, Trump would probably win in a landslide. And this is a desperate attempt from the Biden administration to try to save Joe Biden's campaign, because the idea is that, well, Biden had a polling boost after the State of the Union, which, again, the bar was set really low, okay? All Joe Biden had to do is go out there and read off a teleprompter for an hour, and all of a sudden, people were saying, oh, Joe Biden's great, right? His mental capabilities are amazing, okay, because he read off a teleprompter for an hour. Now, again, he's going to be doing this debate where he doesn't have a teleprompter, and I guess the idea is that, well, regardless of whether or not Biden wins or loses the debate, as long as he makes it through the debate without a Mitch McConnell moment, then it will be a success for him. However, I highly doubt that Joe Biden can make it through the debate without a Mitch McConnell moment. In fact, if a Mitch McConnell moment happens, it's over for Joe Biden. But again, at this point, considering that he's outright losing the race, I mean, it's probably kind of worth it at this point, right? It's kind of worth it to risk everything, considering how you really don't have much to lose anymore, in order to try to win. And I think that's the calculation that the Biden campaign is making, because best believe, if Biden was up 2 or 3 points over Trump, right? If he was outright winning, okay, they wouldn't be doing this. They wouldn't be doing this at all. They're only doing this because they know that Biden's losing. So you know for a fact, okay, despite the cope from Joe Scarborough, the polls are fake. In New York Times, your poll, we should believe it. It's a garbage poll because it got Trump winning, right? Regardless of all that, right? there's no doubt in my mind that the Biden internal polls are showing that this man is losing. They know they're losing, because if they weren't losing, if they were confident that Joe Biden could win, he wouldn't debate. He wouldn't debate. The people that are desperate to debate are the ones that are losing, right? This is why Nikki Haley was so desperate to debate Trump. This is why Ron DeSantis was so desperate to debate Trump during the primary, because they were losing, right? So they wanted that debate because they knew they had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Same thing with Biden right now. Same thing with Biden, except I think that Biden doing this debate and getting crushed, which he will, I think it's going to be the nail in his coffin, right? It's going to guarantee he's going to lose, especially if he has a Mitch McConnell moment, which I think is more likely than not. So Trump immediately responded to Biden's video, and he says, "Crooked Joe Biden is the worst debater I have ever faced. He can't put two sentences together. Crooked is also the worst president in the history of the United States, by far. It's time for a debate so that he can explain to the American people his highly destructive open border policy, new and ridiculous EV mandates, the allowance of crushing inflation, high taxes, and his really weak foreign policy, which is allowing the world to catch on fire. I am ready and willing to debate Crooked Joe at the two proposed times in June and September. I would strongly recommend more than two debates, and for excitement purposes, a very large venue, although Biden is supposedly afraid of crowds. That's only because he doesn't get them. Just tell me when, I'll be there. Let's get ready to rumble." Yeah, I mean, I think Trump has a point when it comes to the whole crowd thing, because it's more likely that Trump supporters are going to show up than Biden supporters, right? And, you know, that is going to sway the crowd and the perception of how the debate is going. So all of this is in Trump's favor. So it's no wonder that Trump has immediately accepted this, because, again, it was a trap, right? Trump was baiting Biden into doing something that the Biden campaign clearly and obviously doesn't want to do, but because they know they're losing, then they have to do it. So let's actually listen to Trump's national press secretary for his campaign, Caroline Leavitt, talk about the Trump-Biden debate.
The polling numbers in the New York Times this week were dreadful.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, correct. You have to think that the White House wants to go on offense, and I think that's what his campaign is trying to do, to start a conversation here. Have you talked to Trump this morning?
We have, yes.
Okay. Is he going to make any demands here?
Yeah.
Or is he going to allow the White House to drive everything that is done with these debates?
Well, look, our teams will obviously negotiate the terms, the networks. Joe Biden's campaign team coincidentally said that this network, they don't want to have to host one of the debates. They said they'd use previous networks from 2016 and the 2020 cycles, which include ABC, CBS, Telemundo, and CNN. Look, President Trump has said, again, he'll do it anytime, anywhere, any place, and we'll let our teams negotiate the
I think
details.
I'm okay with a smaller audience, and I'll tell you why. I think that sometimes, just having moderated that debate in September, it gets a little chaotic. But that's different. There were 9 people on stage, the high stakes. They agreed on 98% of what we were talking about. So there was a lot of that. But I do think in some ways it advantages President Trump, because in a crowd situation, the Biden people would be like, we've got to bring extra, so we could give him some energy. And if you just see them together, side by, we look at the videos, we see the things separately, but in terms of energy, command of the issues, ability to think on their feet, decisiveness, I think that could actually work in Trump's favor.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think it matters either way, right? I honestly think that an audience would actually, again, be better for Trump, because Trump is going to beat Biden on the issues, okay? Biden's going to lose on the issues. Biden's whole goal is basically to make it out of the debate alive, right? Not to fall asleep on stage, okay? If he doesn't fall asleep on stage, if he doesn't have a Mitch McConnell moment, they're going to consider that to be a win, okay? Because he will not win on the issues. But I personally think that if you're going to do two debates, it has to be on one conservative network and one liberal network. It can't be CNN, CBS, ABC doing no. They're not neutral, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe even give it a News Nation. I'm just saying, it has to be at least neutral in the sense that it's on one liberal station and one conservative station. It can't just be all on liberal stations. Even though, again, I don't think it really matters, because I just think that Trump is just going to be that much better than Joe Biden on the issues. But still, it's interesting that, again, Biden doesn't want an in-studio audience because he knows that with an in-studio audience that, again, it's just going to be hard for him to get supporters to show up. Nobody openly supports this guy, okay? It's going to be a bunch of Trumpers, right? And he going to get cooked. He going to get cooked. So, I mean, I think that this is a bad idea for Joe Biden, to be quite honest with you.
Well, look, President Trump is comfortable speaking in both environments, right? He has smaller events all the time. He also has massive rallies like we saw this past weekend in Deep Blue, New Jersey, with more than 100,000 people there. And so he's comfortable with doing it. It's Joe Biden who is weak, Joe Biden who stumbles through a 15-minute teleprompter speech.
I want to get to one last point. Put it back on the screen, guys, the qualifications that we understand right now. Look at the last one. Microphones only active during each candidate's turn. That was an issue in 2020.
I think that's okay, too.
For President Trump, but it may be. But you may or may not be able to voice objections if something is said on stage.
That's certainly an effort to protect Joe Biden, who obviously has an issue with his stuttering, with his speaking, with his cognitive
but it was
ability.
President Trump who was the interrupt-a-thon in September of 2020, as you remember.
We will let our team debate the tactics of how these will move forward. All I can tell you is the president is ready to do it.
Okay.
Right. Caroline,
thanks for being here.
Way to hustle over here. We thank you in the rain.
Yeah, so that is the perception of the Trump campaign. Again, I think that this is a trap. I think Biden is falling for the trap. This is an act of desperation. His team did not want him to do it, but somebody put a battery in Joe Biden's back and said, hey, you got to do it, right? Because you're losing, and he's going to do it. And this bases confirmation that they're losing, right? They know that they're losing because otherwise, if they weren't losing, they wouldn't be doing it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.